What's going on, everybody? Stained Glass Assassin. Just want to take a couple minutes and discuss an article that I came across, or someone sent me a link to, about some good news about the comic industry and some sales growth during the pandemic year. Now, I know this news is a couple days old, but I've been so busy lately that any news is new news for me. So anyways, I went over to Comichron and read this article, which is entitled Comics and graphic novel sales hit new high in pandemic year, which, hey, I thought that was great news, especially, given everything that was going on during the pandemic. So I was interested to see what the article contained. Now, the biggest takeaway for me from this article was that there was $1.28 billion in sales for 2020 and a 6% increase over sales in 2019. So, good news. Obviously, we're seeing some growth. The rest of the article goes on to talk about, the challenges that a lot of these markets face for obvious reasons. They also talk about other mediums such as YA or kids graphic novels, some of the periodical or floppy market. So the rest of the article goes on to discuss certain things like sales in digital comics and, in bookstores, or lack thereof. And it talks about where it gets its data from. Obviously, Diamond Comics isn't going to be releasing the information, so they went to Comic Hub. And they bring up things like Kickstarter and newsstands and things like that. But the biggest takeaway was the $1.28 billion in sales and the 6% growth. Now, you see on the side here, they have some interesting graphics talking about, obviously, year-by-year sales, some channel sales, format across time. But what I want to focus on is right here. Graphic novel sales, comic books, and digital comics. So we'll see that $835 million of the $1.28 billion was from graphic novels. So if I'm doing my math correctly, let's see, that's roughly 65%. Again, if I'm doing that math correctly. I'm no mathematician, but so that's a pretty big chunk, okay? Now, the only problem I have with this number, which I'm not demonizing Comichron or anything, their job is just to report these numbers. I would like to see a breakdown of that 835. And what I mean is, we know that there are roughly three main genres in the graphic novel category. You have your North American kind of Western-themed superhero capes, Batman, Spider-Man, whatnot. Then you have YA, or the kids' graphic novels. And then you have manga. And now, even though all three of those fall under the umbrella of graphic novel sales, not all sales are equal. So, if you've been paying attention, you know that manga has been exploding over the last year, especially this year. And if you go over to ICV2, we look at the top 20 charts for graphic novels. Now, if you've been paying attention, there was a reoccurring trend that was happening where manga was slowly overtaking the entire top 20 chart until eventually it did. Every single slot on the top 20 belonged to a manga title. It got kind of embarrassing, so what they had to do was split the charts into two. So we now have a superhero-themed graphic novel, you see here, and you have a manga graphic novel. Now, by the way, I'm just using a random date, December from 2020, just to kind of stay within the 2020 calendar year. These numbers are obviously very different in 2021, given that bookstores, comic shops are all open. So it's actually kind of worse in 2020. So I'm just going to give it to the benefit of the doubt and use 2020 numbers, at least just a random month. But anyway, you'll see here, obviously, that Batman 3 Jokers is number one on the Western kind of superhero chart. So you scroll down here to the manga and you see obviously My Hero Academia number one, Demon Slayer, My Hero, My Hero, My Hero. But pay attention to those top five, because let's go over to the combined graphic novel sales chart. And what do we see? Well, we see those same My Hero, Demon Slayer, My Hero, My Hero. And of course you got other things like Strange Planet, and down here you have Dune, the graphic novel. But if you look in the publishers section, there are no actual DC, Marvel, Image. There's no Western-themed graphic novels finishing in the top 20. And this trend has been growing, and it's getting bigger and bigger. In fact, I would love to see the expanded numbers, maybe like a top 50, and see how far back Western-themed graphic novels actually are. I just mentioned that, of course, the kids' YA graphic novels have their own chart too. And I know some people try to make the argument that, like, you see here, Dogman obviously dominates this chart, but Dogman and Cat Kid, yes, those are technically superheroes, and there are a lot of YA superhero themed kind of books, but a lot of YA books are kind of not based around your typical Western comics. And Dogman and Cat Kid, although they are a hero book, they're not in the same category as Batman and Spider-Man. That's why we obviously give them their own genre, the YA. I mean, that's like saying the Scary Movie franchise, which is a comedy parody, is actually a horror film. It's not. Even though it's based around horror themes, well, Dogman might be based around hero themes, but it's not Western-themed graphic novels. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out. But anyways, so if I revisit the 300, let's go back to this, 835 million, where are those numbers on the breakdown? Because according to the charts we just looked at, it kind of looks like that perhaps, maybe, a large portion of that 835 is actually manga, or perhaps also YA. And if you go over to guys like Thinking Critical with Wes, Comics by Perch, they got a lot of guys on their channels who are in the know. They'll tell you that that's true. These numbers are actually big manga. And you can back that up because if you remember last month or 2 months ago, they released a headline saying that Demon Slayer outsold the entire Western, North American comic market. And I wasn't sure if I believed that or not, so I went over to comicbook.com because I saw they had a nice article here, fact-checked. Did Demon Slayer really outsell all of American comics? Now, they take some liberty here. They use some kind of speculatory numbers, advanced analytics. They cite some occurring trends in the industry. And they come to the conclusion that it's possible that Demon Slayer may have outsold the North American market, but at least they sold on par with them. So, one title of manga went toe-to-toe with the entire combined might of North American comics and held their own. That is very telling. It's very telling because, again, I want to know what's going on with this 835. If that is true, then my argument that manga is making up a large portion of this 835 is true. So where am I going with this? Why do I keep harping on manga and the 835 number? Well, if you've been over to Twitter, which I don't have Twitter, by the way, I don't have Facebook, I don't have any of that stuff. It's too toxic, if you will, for me. But I do follow some people's kind of feeds. And people over at like Marvel, DC, you got creators like Jerry Conway, they've been demonizing manga, playing it down as if it was just a passing fad. It's not here to stay, not a long-term investment. Jerry Conway himself, remember, this is the guy who created Power Girl and the Boob Window, has been demonizing manga for over-sexualizing their characters, and shame on them. But it sure sounds like they're biting the hand that feeds, because they're demonizing the very thing that is responsible for this sudden growth in the industry. Okay, as I said, Wes and Perch, they have writers, producers, creators on their channel all the time who will tell you straight up that that's true. YA and manga is essentially propping up the North American comic industry right now. Floppies aren't doing well, and according to these charts, Western-themed graphic novels just aren't selling well. They're getting killed in the top 20. And like I said, if you expanded it further, I'd be willing to bet it's probably into the 30s. And I just want to say first and foremost, I'm glad to see an increase in sales because at the end of the day, I'm a comic nerd. I don't want to see the comic industry fail. Even though Marvel and DC has pushed me away and I'm now getting bigger and bigger into manga, I hope one day to get back to Marvel and DC, but they have to take their heads out of the sand and out of their asses and kind of realize what's happening. And as I just said, information like this is kind of a double-edged sword. It's good on one hand because I'm excited to see growth in the industry, but people like Jerry Conway are going to use this and say, oh, look, everybody, there's a 6% increase. So all the woke garbage and all the identity politics we've been using to drive our fans away are clearly working, and we're right, and everyone who hates these comics is wrong because there's clearly an increase in sales. But I'd be like, yo, Jerry, why don't you give me the breakdown of these increased sales? Where's the 6% coming from? Because all indications are telling me that it's not your woke Western-themed graphic novels that are selling well. it's manga, it's YA, it's all the stuff that people like me are now reading because you drove me away. So they're patting themselves on the back while, according to everything that I'm hearing from experts in the field, I'm looking at numbers on charts, I'm reading, overall kind of sales on Comichron, the Western themed stuff isn't, so hot right now. So maybe they should hold off on patting themselves on the back. That being said, this will probably get worse for 2021 because I expect the boom to be even bigger, especially with comic stores opening back up, bookstores. As I said, you see the huge section that Barnes & Nobles and stuff is allocating for manga, and it's selling like hotcakes. So the graphic novel sales for 2021 is going to be even bigger than that, and guys like Jerry Conway are going to say, see, even more growth. Let's keep woking things up a bit. But I don't know. Like I said, I just wanted to share this article with you, and like I said, I'm definitely happy to see growth, but all this means is we're probably going to get another year of identity politics rampant throughout at least the big two comic books until they kind of wake up and see what's going on and that the thing that they're demonizing is actually saving their industry. So either way, let me know what you think down in the comments. Are you a big manga reader? Are you sticking with the big two? Let me know. While you're down there, like and subscribe so you know when the next video comes out. And until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.